I adjusted the emerald-cut diamond on my finger, still marveling at its weight after 3 weeks. Marcus had proposed at Pike Place Market, right where we'd had our first date 5 years ago. The ring had cost more than most people's cars, but Marcus never hesitated when it came to grand gestures. His pharmaceutical consulting firm had been thriving, and he wanted everyone to know he could provide for me in style. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Evelyn, darling, you look absolutely radiant, cooed Mrs. Henderson from the country club, air-kissing both my cheeks. Marcus is such a catch. You're so lucky to have found each other. I smiled graciously, the same smile I'd perfected over months of dinner parties and charity galas. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. We're very happy. But as I watched Marcus charm another group of his business associates, something cold settled in my stomach. It had been there for weeks now, a nagging feeling that I couldn't shake. Maybe it was pre-wedding jitters. After all, planning a wedding while managing my interior design firm wasn't exactly stress-free. Eve. My best friend Rachel appeared at my elbow, slightly breathless from navigating through the crowd. Your parents are looking for you. Something about the wedding photographer for next month. I nodded, but before I could move, a commotion near the elevator caught my attention. The crowd seemed to part slightly, conversations faltering as someone made their way through. My breath caught in my throat. Sophia Chen, Marcus's ex-girlfriend from college. She looked different from the photos I'd seen on his old social media, more polished, more confident. Her black hair was shorter now, styled in an elegant bob that framed her angular face. She wore a simple black dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, and she moved through the crowd with the kind of self-assurance that made people step aside without realizing why. What is she doing here? Rachel whispered, following my gaze. That was exactly what I wanted to know. Marcus had mentioned Sophia exactly 3 times in 5 years. They'd dated seriously in college, she'd moved to New York for work, and they'd lost touch. End of story. So why was she here, at our engagement party, looking like she belonged? I watched as Marcus spotted her across the room. His face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite identify. He excused himself from his conversation and started moving toward her, but she was already heading straight for me. Evelyn Richardson? Her voice was smoother than I'd imagined, with just a hint of an accent that suggested expensive private schools. I'm Sophia Chen. Congratulations on your engagement. She extended a perfectly manicured hand, and I shook it automatically, noting the firmness of her grip and the absence of any jewelry, except for a delicate gold watch that probably cost more than my car. Thank you, I managed, wondering why every instinct I had was screaming danger. I'm sorry, but I don't believe Marcus mentioned you were coming. He didn't know. Sophia's smile was enigmatic. I wanted to surprise him. We have some catching up to do. Before I could ask what that meant, Marcus appeared at my side, slightly out of breath. Sophia, this is unexpected. Hello, Marcus. The way she said his name carried weight, history, intimacy that made my chest tighten. You look well. What are you doing here? His voice was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. The way his hand found the small of my back, possessive, protective, or guilty. Can't old friends celebrate your happiness? Sophia's eyes moved between us, and I caught something calculating in her expression. Besides, I have news that I thought you should hear in person. The crowd around us had started to take notice. Conversations were becoming more subdued, and I could feel the weight of curious stares. Whatever was happening here, it was about to become very public. Maybe we should talk privately, Marcus suggested. But Sophia shook her head. No, I think this concerns Evelyn, too. She reached into her small clutch purse and pulled out what looked like a medical document. Congratulations, Marcus. You're going to be a father. The words hit me like a physical blow. The noise of the party seemed to fade into a distant hum, and I felt Rachel's hand grip my arm to steady me. Around us, I was dimly aware of gasps, whispers, the collective intake of breath from everyone within earshot. "That's impossible," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. His face had gone pale, and he was staring at the document in Sophia's hand like it might bite him. 12 weeks, Sophia continued, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet terrace. "I thought you should know before you marry someone else." My diamond ring suddenly felt like a weight around my finger. 5 years. 5 years of building a life together, of planning our future, of believing in his faithfulness. And now this perfectly poised woman claiming to be carrying his child. "Evelyn," Marcus started, turning to me with panic in his eyes, but I held up my hand to stop him. "When?" I asked Sophia, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "When did this happen? Does it matter?" Sophia's smile was serene, almost sympathetic. "What matters is that Marcus and I are going to be parents. I thought he deserved to know before making any permanent commitments." I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to deny it, to call her a liar, to do something other than stand there looking like a man who'd been caught in the act. But he just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The silence stretched on, broken only by the distant sound of Seattle traffic and the soft jazz music that suddenly seemed inappropriately cheerful. 200 people were watching us, waiting for someone to speak, to explain, to make sense of what was happening. Finally, Marcus found his voice. "Evelyn, I can explain," and there it was. Not a denial, not outrage at the accusation. Just a promise to explain, which was as good as a confession. I pulled off my engagement ring and set it carefully on the nearest table. The sound it made against the glass was surprisingly loud in the sudden quiet. "I think you've explained enough," I said, turning and walking toward the elevator. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of voices, the excited whispers, the shuffling of feet as people either tried to follow me or get closer to the drama. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. The elevator ride down to the parking garage felt endless. My phone was already buzzing with texts from Rachel, my parents, my sister. But I ignored them all, focusing instead on the steady rhythm of my breathing and the cold concrete walls sliding past the elevator windows. In my car, I finally let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened. The betrayal was a physical ache in my chest, but underneath it was something else, a strange sense of relief. For weeks, I'd felt like something was wrong, like Marcus was hiding something. Now I knew what it was. My phone rang. Marcus. I declined the call and started my engine, but as I drove through the Seattle streets toward my apartment, my mind began working. Sophia's timing was too perfect, too calculated. The way she'd presented the information, the medical document she'd waved around but hadn't actually shown anyone, it all felt orchestrated, and Marcus. 5 years together, and I'd never known him to be unfaithful. Irresponsible with money sometimes, prone to grand gestures that weren't always practical, but never dishonest about other women. So what had changed? I pulled into my apartment complex and sat in my car for a moment, thinking. If Sophia was telling the truth, then Marcus had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But if she was lying, why? What did she have to gain? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my sister Jamie. "Mom just called. What the hell happened at your party?" I turned off my phone and headed upstairs. Whatever was happening here, I needed to understand it before I made any decisions about my future. And that meant finding out exactly who Sophia Chen was and what she really wanted. The next morning brought a parade of visitors. Rachel arrived first, laden with coffee and pastries that I had no appetite for. Then my parents, faces tight with worry and barely concealed anger at Marcus. Finally, my sister Jamie, who took one look at me and declared that she was canceling her work meetings to stay. "Have you talked to him?" Rachel asked, perched on the edge of my couch like she was ready to spring into action. I shook my head. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages. I stopped counting after that. What are you going to do? This from my mother, who had been unusually quiet since arriving. I don't know. I stared out my living room window at the Space Needle in the distance. I keep thinking about how she looked at me, like she was studying me, measuring my reaction. What do you mean? Jamie asked. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't emotional. She was calculating, like she was following a script. I turned to face them. What if she's lying? My father, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. Honey, why would she lie about something like that? The truth would come out eventually. That's what I can't figure out. I walked to my laptop and opened it. But I'm going to find out who Sophia Chen really is. It took me 3 hours of searching, but I finally found her. Sophia Chen, 29, Director of Strategic Partnerships at Meridian Pharmaceuticals in New York. My blood ran cold as I read her company bio, Meridian Pharmaceuticals, the same company that had been trying to acquire Marcus's consulting firm for the past 6 months. Oh my God, I breathed, calling the others over to look at my screen. Rachel read over my shoulder. She works for the company that's trying to buy Marcus's business? It gets worse. I clicked through to the recent press releases. Look at this. Meridian just closed a major acquisition last month. A small pharmaceutical consulting firm in Portland. Same business model as Marcus's company. Same client base. Jamie leaned in closer. So she's what, industrial espionage in a cocktail dress? Maybe. But even as I said it, I knew there was more to it. The way she'd looked at Marcus, the familiarity in her voice when she said his name. There was history there. Real history. My phone rang. Marcus again. This time I answered. Evelyn, thank God. We need to talk. Yes, we do. My voice was steady, controlled, but not over the phone. Meet me at Cafe Luna in an hour. I'll be there. And Evelyn, I love you. Whatever you think happened, I love you. I hung up without responding. Cafe Luna was nearly empty when I arrived, just a few laptop-wielding freelancers and a couple sharing a late breakfast. I chose a table in the back corner, positioning myself so I could see the entrance. Marcus arrived exactly on time, looking like he hadn't slept. His usual confident posture was gone, replaced by the slumped shoulders of a man carrying a heavy burden. His dark hair was disheveled, and there were circles under his brown eyes that I'd never seen before. He slid into the seat across from me, reaching across the table as if to take my hand, but I pulled back. Is it true? I asked without preamble. He was quiet for a long moment, staring down at his untouched coffee. When he finally looked up, I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Genuine fear. It's complicated, he said. That's not an answer. Yes. The word came out as barely a whisper. But not the way you think. I felt something crack inside my chest, even though I'd been preparing for this confirmation. How many ways are there to get someone pregnant, Marcus? I didn't cheat on you. He leaned forward, his voice urgent. I swear on my mother's grave I never cheated on you. Then how? It was before we were exclusive. Right after we started dating, maybe 3 months in, she came to Seattle on business, we had drinks, and he trailed off, running his hands through his hair. I thought it was just one night. A stupid mistake from my past. I stared at him, trying to process this. 3 months into our relationship? We talked about being exclusive after 6 weeks. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have told you about Sophia, should have been honest about everything. But it was just one night and then she was gone, and I didn't think... You didn't think she'd show up pregnant at our engagement party 5 years later? The timeline doesn't make sense, he said desperately. If she got pregnant from that night, the baby would have been born 4 years ago. She said 12 weeks, Evelyn. 12 weeks means she got pregnant 3 months ago. I felt a spark of something. Hope, maybe, or just the desperate need for this to make sense. So you're saying she's lying? I'm saying something isn't right. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a series of text messages. Look at this. She's been texting me for weeks, wanting to meet up, saying she has something important to tell me. I thought it was about work. I read through the messages. They were professional, almost formal, but with an underlying current of intimacy that made my stomach turn. Work? Her company is trying to acquire mine. Has been for months. I thought she was part of the negotiating team. She is. I told him about my research, about Meridian Pharmaceuticals and their recent acquisitions. The question is, why lie about being pregnant? What does she gain? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his business mind clearly working. Leverage, he said finally. If I'm distracted by personal drama, if my reputation is damaged by cheating scandal, your company's value drops, making it easier for them to acquire it for less money. I felt pieces of a puzzle starting to click into place. But Marcus, that's incredibly elaborate. And risky. What if someone demands proof? That's just it, he said, leaning back in his chair. She's counting on the fact that no one would dare ask a pregnant woman to prove it. It's socially unacceptable. I thought about the medical document she'd waved around at the party. Did you see what was on that paper? No, did you? I shook my head. She was careful to keep it turned away from everyone. What if it wasn't real? Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went pale. She wants to meet with me this afternoon. Says we need to discuss our future and the baby's needs. Don't go, I said immediately. I have to. If she's lying, I need to know. And if she's not, he met my eyes. If she's not, then I have responsibilities. I stared at him across the table, this man I'd planned to marry, and realized I didn't know him at all. The Marcus I thought I knew would have told me about Sophia years ago. Would have been honest about his past, about the acquisition attempts, about everything. I need time, I said, standing up. I need to think. Evelyn, please, don't let her destroy us. Whatever game she's playing, don't let her win. Maybe she already has. I left him sitting there and walked out into the Seattle afternoon. The rain that had been threatening all morning finally started to fall, matching my mood perfectly. But as I walked back to my car, my phone rang. It was Rachel. Eve, you need to see this. I've been digging into Sophia Chen's background. There's something you need to know. What is it? Not over the phone. Meet me at your place. And Eve, bring Marcus. He needs to hear this too. An hour later, the three of us sat in my living room while Rachel spread printouts across my coffee table like she was building a case for trial. Sophia Chen, she began, graduated summa cum laude from NYU with degrees in both business and psychology. She's worked for 3 different pharmaceutical companies in the past 5 years, and at each one, she's been involved in hostile takeovers. She pulled out a newspaper clipping. This is from the Portland Business Journal 2 months ago. The CEO of that consulting firm Meridian acquired? He claimed the negotiation process was unusually aggressive and involved personal attacks designed to destabilize leadership. Marcus leaned forward. What kind of personal attacks? That's where it gets interesting. Rachel pulled out another document. I have a friend who works in corporate law. She made some calls. Apparently, right before the acquisition, rumors started spreading that the CEO was having an affair. His wife filed for divorce, his business partner wanted to dissolve their partnership, and the company's value plummeted. The rumors were false, I said, already knowing the answer. Completely. But by the time the truth came out, Meridian had already bought the company for 30% less than its actual value. I felt sick. So this is what she does. She destroys people's personal lives to manipulate business deals. It appears so. Rachel pulled out one more document. And here's the kicker. I ran a background check on her. Sophia Chen has never been married, has no children, and according to her social media, she was in Tokyo on business exactly 12 weeks ago. Marcus went very still. She couldn't have gotten pregnant 12 weeks ago if she was in Japan. Not by you, anyway. I looked at him carefully. Unless you were in Tokyo 12 weeks ago? I've never been to Japan in my life. We sat in silence for a moment, the implications sinking in. Sophia wasn't pregnant with Marcus's child. She might not be pregnant at all. This was all an elaborate scheme to destroy his reputation and devalue his company. But there was still the matter of their history, of the night 5 years ago that he'd never told me about. That betrayal was still real, still raw. So what do we do? Marcus asked. Rachel smiled grimly. We prove she's lying, and then we make sure everyone who was at that party knows the truth. How? I stood up and walked to my purse, pulling out my phone. First, we're going to need proof. Real proof. And I think I know how to get it. Marcus and Rachel looked at me expectantly. You're going to meet with her this afternoon, just like she asked. But you're not going alone. Part 1 of our story was ending, but the real game was just beginning. Sophia Chen thought she could manipulate us, destroy our lives for her corporate ambitions. She was about to learn that some people fight back, and when they do, they fight to win. 2 hours later, I sat in my car across the street from the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, watching Marcus disappear through the revolving doors. He was wearing a wire, a tiny recording device that Rachel had somehow procured through her network of legal contacts. The plan was simple in theory. Get Sophia to reveal her true motivations while gathering evidence of her deception. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel, who was monitoring the audio feed from a van parked 3 blocks away. Signal is clear. Recording active. I adjusted the binoculars I'd borrowed from my father and focused on the hotel's bar through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Marcus appeared, looking nervous as he scanned the room. A moment later, Sophia emerged from the shadows near the piano, moving toward him with predatory grace. Even from this distance, I could see she'd changed tactics. Gone was the confident power player from last night. Today she wore a flowing cream-colored dress that artfully suggested early pregnancy, her hair pulled back in a softer style. She was playing the vulnerable, expectant mother, complete with a gentle hand resting on her still flat stomach. My phone rang. Can you see them? Rachel's voice crackled through my earpiece. Yes, she's really committed to this performance. Listen to this, Rachel said. And suddenly I could hear Marcus's voice through the receiver. You look different, Marcus was saying, his voice carefully neutral. Pregnancy changes you, Sophia replied, her tone softer than it had been last night. I know this is overwhelming, Marcus. It's been overwhelming for me too. When did you find out? 2 weeks ago. I kept hoping it was just stress, but... Her voice caught perfectly, just the right amount of vulnerability. The doctor confirmed it yesterday. I gripped my phone tighter. She was good, really good. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed her myself. Sophia, Marcus said, and I could hear him struggling to keep his voice steady. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. 12 weeks ago, where were you? There was a pause, just a fraction of a second, but I caught it. What do you mean? I mean geographically. Where were you 12 weeks ago? Another pause. Here, in Seattle. That's when we were together. My blood ran cold. She was doubling down on the lie, even when confronted with the timeline impossibility. That's interesting, Marcus continued, and I could hear the edge creeping into his voice. Because I have records showing you were in Tokyo on business exactly 12 weeks ago. You've been investigating me? Sophia's voice shifted, becoming sharper. The vulnerable facade was cracking. Just trying to understand the timeline. If you were in Japan... I wasn't in Japan 12 weeks ago. But her voice lacked conviction now. I think you're confused about the dates. Am I? Marcus's question hung in the air. I watched through my binoculars as Sophia reached into her purse. For a moment, I thought she might be pulling out evidence. Medical records, perhaps, or proof of her whereabouts. Instead, she extracted what looked like a photograph. This is our baby, Marcus. Her voice had regained its strength. Our child. Do you really want to argue about calendars when we should be talking about our future? Even from across the street, I could see Marcus lean back in his chair. Let me see it. Sophia placed the photograph on the table between them, but kept her hand over part of it. 12 weeks and 2 days. The doctor said everything looks perfect. My phone buzzed with a text message from my sister Jamie. Something's wrong. Get out of there now. But before I could react, another text came through from an unknown number. I know what you're doing. Stop now or everyone finds out about your real secrets too. My hands began to shake. Someone was watching me watch them. I scanned the street, the building windows, looking for any sign of surveillance. The unknown number sent another text. The parking garage across from Pike Place Market. 15 minutes. Come alone. My mind raced. This had to be connected to Sophia somehow. A partner, maybe, or someone else involved in whatever scheme she was running. But what secrets could they possibly know about me? I called Rachel. Something's wrong. I'm getting threatening texts. What kind of threats? I read her the messages. Through the earpiece, I could still hear Marcus and Sophia's conversation continuing in the hotel bar. But it was becoming background noise to my growing panic. Evelyn, listen to me, Rachel said, her voice sharp with urgency. Do not go to that meeting. I'm calling the police. No. The word came out more firmly than I'd expected. If we involve the police now, we lose our chance to expose her. And besides, what crime has actually been committed? Lying about being pregnant isn't illegal. Fraud is. If she's using this pregnancy claim to manipulate a business deal, we need proof first. I started my engine. Keep monitoring Marcus. If I'm not back in an hour, then call the police. Against Rachel's protests, I hung up and drove toward Pike Place Market. My phone continued buzzing with her calls, but I ignored them. Whatever secrets this person thought they knew about me, I needed to face them directly. The parking garage was dimly lit and nearly empty at this hour. I found a spot on the 3rd level and sat in my car, waiting. My hands were still shaking, and I realized I hadn't eaten anything since breakfast. The stress was getting to me physically, and I needed to stay sharp. At exactly 15 minutes past the hour, a figure emerged from the shadows near the elevator. A man in an expensive suit, probably in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of confident bearing that suggested corporate power. He walked directly to my car and tapped on the passenger window. Against every instinct screaming at me to drive away, I unlocked the door. Ms. Richardson, he said as he settled into the passenger seat. Thank you for coming. I'm David Kellerman, Senior Vice President of Acquisitions at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. My blood went cold. This wasn't some random threat. This was Sophia's boss. What do you want? I managed to ask. To make you an offer. He pulled a manila envelope from his jacket and placed it on my dashboard. Inside is a cashier's check for $2 million. All you have to do is walk away. Walk away from what? From Marcus. From the investigation I know you're conducting. From any attempt to discredit Ms. Chen's pregnancy claim. His voice was calm, matter of fact, as if he were discussing the weather. Take the money, break off your engagement quietly, and everyone gets what they want. I stared at the envelope, my mind reeling. What makes you think I would do that? Because the alternative is that everyone finds out about your father's gambling debts, your mother's prescription drug addiction, and the fact that your interior design business is 3 months behind on its taxes and facing audit by the IRS. Each revelation hit me like a physical blow. How could he possibly know about my family's private struggles? About the financial problems I'd been desperately trying to hide? You've been investigating me. Due diligence, Kellerman said smoothly. We investigate everyone involved in our acquisitions. Your fiancé's reputation matters to us, and by extension, so does yours. So Sophia's pregnancy is genuine, as far as anyone can prove. The question is whether you want to fight a battle you can't win or take a generous settlement and move on with your life. I thought about my parents, who had no idea I knew about their problems. My father's gambling had started small, a few poker games with friends, but had escalated to online betting that had drained their retirement savings. My mother's anxiety medication had become a crutch after my grandmother's death last year, and she was now taking twice the prescribed dose just to function. And my business. I'd been so focused on planning the wedding and managing my relationship with Marcus that I'd let my accounting slide. The tax situation was manageable, but it would require time and money I didn't have. How do I know you won't just destroy my life anyway? I asked. Because destroying you serves no purpose once you're out of the picture. Our interest is in acquiring Marcus's company cleanly and efficiently. If you're not there to support him through this difficult time, he'll be more motivated to sell. I stared out the windshield at the Seattle skyline, thinking fast. Kellerman was offering me an easy way out. $2 million to walk away from a relationship that might already be damaged beyond repair. But something about the whole situation still felt wrong. The pregnancy, I said. If it's real, why all the elaborate timing? Why announce it publicly instead of talking to Marcus privately? Kellerman's expression didn't change. Ms. Chen is a passionate woman. Perhaps she felt wronged by not being told about your engagement directly. Perhaps she wanted to ensure Marcus couldn't dismiss her or ignore his responsibilities. And if it's not real? Then you'll never be able to prove it, and the damage to Marcus's reputation will be permanent either way. He reached for the door handle. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires, and we proceed with our original timeline. What original timeline? But he was already getting out of the car. Check your email, Ms. Richardson. I think you'll find some interesting information about your fiancé's business practices. He disappeared back into the shadows, leaving me alone with the manila envelope and a growing sense of dread. I sat there for a long moment before opening my phone. There were 17 missed calls from Rachel and one new email from an anonymous account. The subject line read, Marcus Morrison Financial Records, Confidential. With trembling fingers, I opened the email. Inside were bank statements, transaction records, and what looked like internal company documents. As I scrolled through them, my heart sank deeper with each revelation. Marcus had been borrowing against his company's assets for months, using the money to fund our lavish lifestyle, the expensive engagement ring, the costly restaurants, the down payment on the house we'd been planning to buy after the wedding. His business was heavily leveraged, and if the Meridian acquisition fell through, he would face bankruptcy. There were also records of payments to what looked like gambling sites. Marcus, who had always claimed he never gambled, had been betting heavily on sports and losing consistently. The amounts were staggering, tens of thousands of dollars over the past 6 months. My phone rang. Rachel, where are you? She demanded. Marcus is asking for you. Sophia left 20 minutes ago, and he says she showed him something that changes everything. What kind of something? He won't say over the phone. But Evelyn, you need to hear the recording. She admitted she's not actually 12 weeks pregnant. Despite everything, I felt a surge of vindication. She confessed? Not exactly. She said she might have miscounted, that stress can affect memory. But when Marcus pushed her on the ultrasound photo, she got defensive and said the dates were approximate anyway. I closed my eyes, trying to process everything at once. Rachel, there's something else. Someone from Meridian Pharmaceuticals just offered me $2 million to disappear. What? I told her about Kellerman, about the threats regarding my family's secrets, about the financial records I'd just received showing Marcus's gambling debts and questionable business practices. Jesus, Evelyn. This is bigger than we thought. I know. And I don't think Sophia is the mastermind here. I think she's just a very talented actress following orders. So what do we do? I looked at the manila envelope sitting on my dashboard. $2 million in exchange for walking away from a relationship that might have been built on lies anyway. Then I thought about Marcus, sitting in that hotel bar, probably thinking I was abandoning him when he needed me most. We finish this, I said, starting my engine. But first, I need to have a very honest conversation with my fiancé. The drive back to the hotel gave me time to think about what I'd learned. Marcus had been lying to me about his finances, just as I'd been hiding my business problems from him. We'd both been presenting false versions of ourselves, trying to maintain a facade of success and stability that neither of us could actually afford. But the difference was that my secrets were about pride and embarrassment. His were about betrayal and deception on a massive scale. I found him in the hotel lobby, slumped in a leather chair with his head in his hands. When he saw me approaching, he stood up quickly, his face a mixture of relief and guilt. Evelyn, thank God. I was afraid you'd— We need to talk, I interrupted. And this time, I want the complete truth about everything. He nodded, leading me to a quiet corner of the lobby bar. Sophia admitted the pregnancy timeline doesn't add up. She claims she miscounted, but Marcus, stop. I pulled out my phone and showed him the financial records Kellerman had sent me. Before we talk about Sophia's lies, let's talk about yours. His face went white as he scrolled through the documents. Where did you get these? Does it matter? Are they accurate? He was quiet for a long moment, staring down at the evidence of his deception. When he finally looked up, I saw tears in his eyes. I was trying to give you the life you deserved, he said quietly. The engagement ring, the fancy restaurants, the house we were planning to buy. I wanted to be the man you thought I was. So you lied to me for months about our financial situation? I thought I could fix it. The Meridian acquisition would have solved everything, paid off the debts, given me enough to start over. I just needed to keep everything together until the deal closed. And the gambling? He flinched. It started as a way to make quick money to pay off other debts. I thought if I could just hit big once. He trailed off, shaking his head. I know how stupid that sounds. I stared at this man I'd planned to marry, realizing that I'd been in love with a carefully constructed image rather than the real person. So when Sophia showed up claiming to be pregnant, it wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about losing the acquisition that would have saved your business. Yes. The admission came out as a whisper. But Evelyn, I swear to you, I never cheated on you. Whatever happened 5 years ago before we were exclusive, that's the only time anything ever happened between Sophia and me. But she's not pregnant with your child. No, she can't be. The timeline is impossible, and when I pressed her about it today, she basically admitted she'd made up the 12-week claim. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process everything. So this whole thing is an elaborate scheme to manipulate you into selling your company, and we've both been lying to each other about our real situations. I guess so. He reached across the table and took my hand. But I love you, Evelyn. Despite everything, that's the one thing that's been completely real. I looked down at our joined hands, thinking about Kellerman's offer. $2 million to walk away from all of this. The lies, the debt, the complicated mess our relationship had become. It would be enough to solve my tax problems, help my parents, and start over somewhere else. But walking away would also mean letting Sophia and Kellerman win. It would mean allowing them to destroy Marcus's life and potentially do the same thing to other people in the future. There's something else, I said, and told him about my meeting with Kellerman and the buyout offer. Marcus listened in stunned silence. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. You should take it, he said finally. What? The money. You should take it and get out of this mess. I'm drowning, Evelyn. My business, my debts, my reputation, it's all falling apart. You don't need to go down with me. I studied his face, seeing real desperation there. Is that what you want? For me to take the money and disappear? I want you to be safe. And happy. And free from all the lies I've told you. I pulled my hand away from his and stood up. I need to think. As I walked toward the hotel exit, my phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. Decision time? Ms. Richardson, choose wisely. But as I stepped out onto the Seattle street, I realized I'd already made my choice. I wasn't going to let Kellerman and Sophia manipulate us any longer. If they wanted a fight, they were going to get one, after all. They'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated exactly how far someone would go to protect the people they love, even when those people had lied to them. The next morning, I stood in Rachel's downtown law office surrounded by documents, whiteboards, and what looked like a war room planning session. Rachel had called in favors from 3 different private investigators, a forensic accountant and her colleague Maya, who specialized in corporate fraud cases. Here's what we know for certain, Maya said, pointing to a timeline she'd drawn on the whiteboard. Sophia Chen was in Tokyo 12 weeks ago. Hotel records confirm it. She was there for a Meridian pharmaceutical conference, not a romantic rendezvous in Seattle. And the ultrasound photo she showed Marcus? I asked. Stock image, replied Tom, one of the private investigators. Reverse image search pulled it from a medical textbook published in 2019. She probably downloaded it from a pregnancy website. Rachel spread out more documents on the conference table. But here's where it gets interesting. We've traced Sophia's involvement in 3 other hostile takeovers over the past 2 years. Same pattern every time: create personal chaos for the target company's leadership, then swoop in with a lowball offer when they're desperate. I studied the files she'd compiled. In Portland, the CEO's marriage had been destroyed by fabricated evidence of an affair. In Phoenix, rumors about the owner's son's drug problems had surfaced just before negotiations. In each case, Meridian had acquired valuable companies for significantly less than market value. So this is basically corporate terrorism, I said. Sophisticated psychological warfare, Maya corrected, and completely legal, as long as they're careful about how they do it. My phone buzzed with a text from the unknown number. 18 hours remaining. Have you made your decision? I showed the message to the group. Kellerman is getting impatient. Good, Rachel said with a predatory smile. Impatient people make mistakes, and we're going to make sure he makes a big one. She pulled out a detailed plan she'd been working on since dawn. Phase 1, we prove Sophia isn't pregnant. Phase 2, we expose the pattern of corporate manipulation. Phase 3, we turn their own tactics against them. How do we prove she's not pregnant? I asked. We make her prove she is, Tom said, pulling out a manila folder. I've been researching Washington state law. If someone makes a paternity claim, the alleged father has the legal right to request DNA testing and medical verification. We just need Marcus to formally request it. She'll never agree to that. She won't have a choice. Not if Marcus files a petition with the family court claiming parental rights and requesting custody arrangements. Rachel's eyes gleamed. The moment she's served with legal papers demanding proof of pregnancy and paternity, she'll have to either produce legitimate medical records or face perjury charges. Maya nodded approvingly. And meanwhile, we document everything. Every lie, every inconsistency, every piece of evidence that this is part of a larger corporate scheme. What about Kellerman's threats regarding my family? I asked. We neutralize them, Tom said matter-of-factly. Your father's gambling debts? We've already contacted a debt restructuring attorney who specializes in gambling addiction cases. Your mother's prescription issue? There's a treatment program that can address that without any legal consequences. Your business tax problems? Maya's husband is a tax attorney who can negotiate with the IRS. I stared at them. You've been busy. The best defense is a good offense, Rachel said. By the time we're done, Kellerman will have nothing to threaten you with and plenty to worry about himself. My phone rang. Marcus. Evelyn, I just got served with papers. Something about a paternity suit, but it's addressed to both of us. I looked at Rachel, who was grinning wickedly. That was fast. What papers? I asked Marcus. It says Sophia Chen is filing for child support and custody arrangements, and we're both named as parties because of our engagement. There's a court date set for next week. Rachel leaned over my shoulder. Tell him to meet us here immediately, and tell him to bring every financial document he has. An hour later, Marcus sat across from us, looking shell-shocked as Maya explained the legal implications. The beauty of this approach, she said, is that it forces everyone's hand. Sophia filed this paternity claim to put pressure on you, but she didn't expect you to actually challenge it legally. Now she has to produce real evidence or commit perjury in front of a judge. But what if she actually is pregnant? Marcus asked. Just not with my child? Then she'll have to explain how she counted 12 weeks incorrectly and why she initially claimed it was yours, Tom replied. Either way, the timeline inconsistencies will destroy her credibility. Rachel pulled out another set of documents. We've also filed a complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission regarding market manipulation. Meridian's pattern of acquiring companies through personal destruction of their leadership could be considered stock manipulation if we can prove they're artificially deflating company values. My phone buzzed again. Kellerman, your fiancé's legal maneuvering is unwise. Last chance to accept our generous offer. I showed the message to the group. Maya raised an eyebrow. He's getting desperate. That's good for us. There's something else, I said, making a decision I'd been wrestling with all morning. I want to talk to Sophia directly. Off the record, away from lawyers and recorders. Absolutely not, Rachel said immediately. too dangerous. Think about it, I insisted. She's not the mastermind here. She's an employee following orders. Maybe she doesn't know about all of Kellerman's other schemes. Maybe she thinks this is just about business. Marcus shook his head. Evelyn, this woman has been manipulating both of us for months. You can't trust anything she says. I'm not planning to trust her. I'm planning to outsmart her. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to the number Sophia had used to contact Marcus. We need to talk. Woman to woman. 1 hour, Carrie Park. The response came within minutes. Come alone. Carrie Park overlooked the Seattle skyline from Queen Anne Hill, offering a panoramic view that usually calmed my nerves. Today, it felt like the perfect stage for a confrontation. I arrived early, positioning myself on a bench where I could see anyone approaching while having multiple exit routes available. Sophia appeared exactly on time, walking up the hill with the same confident stride I remembered from the engagement party. But something was different today. Her designer clothes were replaced with jeans and a simple sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a casual ponytail. She looked younger, more vulnerable, almost normal. Evelyn. She sat down beside me without invitation. I wasn't sure you'd actually come. I want to understand why, I said simply. She was quiet for a moment, staring out at the city skyline. You really love him, don't you? The question caught me off guard. What, Marcus? Despite everything he's lied to you about, you still love him. I don't see how that's relevant. It's relevant because I never did. She turned to look at me directly. I never loved him. What we had in college was convenient, comfortable, but not love. When I ended things to take the New York job, I was relieved. Then why are you doing this? Because David Kellerman pays me very well to be good at my job. And my job is acquiring companies that Meridian wants. Her honesty was unexpected. So you admit this pregnancy is fake? I admit that the timeline I originally claimed was imprecise. Sophia, you were in Tokyo 12 weeks ago. We have hotel records. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yes, you've done your homework. Kellerman said you would. He also offered me $2 million to walk away. I know. I told him it wouldn't work. Why? Because you're not motivated by money. You're motivated by justice, by the need to fix things, to protect people you care about. She leaned back on the bench. It's admirable, actually. Also incredibly inconvenient for my purposes. I studied her face, looking for any sign of the person behind the professional mask. Do you feel guilty about what you do? About destroying people's lives? The people we target aren't innocent victims, she said matter-of-factly. Marcus has been embezzling from his own company to fund a gambling addiction. The CEO in Portland was cooking his books to hide massive losses. The Phoenix company owner was laundering money for his son's drug-dealing operation. My blood went cold. You're saying Marcus has been embezzling? Borrowing against company assets without board approval, using corporate accounts for personal expenses, falsifying financial reports to hide losses. She pulled out a tablet and showed me banking records. We have documentation going back 18 months. I stared at the screen, seeing patterns of financial manipulation that went far beyond what Kellerman had shown me yesterday. How do you know all this? Because we investigate everyone thoroughly before we target them. We don't destroy innocent people's lives, Evelyn. We just accelerate the consequences for people who are already destroying themselves. That doesn't make it right, doesn't it? She tucked the tablet back into her purse. Marcus's company was going to collapse within 6 months anyway. His gambling debts alone would have forced bankruptcy. At least this way, his employees get to keep their jobs when Meridian takes over. I felt sick. So this whole thing, the pregnancy, the public humiliation, the manipulation, it's all to save you from having to pay fair market value for a failing company? It's to ensure a smooth transition that protects everyone's interests, including yours. How does destroying my relationship protect my interests? Because you deserve better than a man who's been lying to you about everything that matters. Her voice softened slightly. The engagement ring he bought you? Purchased with money embezzled from his employees' pension fund. The house you were planning to buy. The down payment came from fraudulent insurance claims. Your fiancé isn't just a gambler, Evelyn. He's a criminal. I stood up abruptly, my legs shaky. I don't believe you. Check the records yourself. Everything I've shown you is verifiable through public databases and court filings. She stood as well. Kellerman's offer expires in 12 hours. Take the money, walk away, and let us clean up Marcus's mess quietly. It's better for everyone. And if I don't? Then tomorrow morning, every news outlet in Seattle gets a complete dossier on Marcus Morrison's financial crimes. His mugshot will be on the evening news, his company will be shuttered, and his employees will lose their jobs just before Christmas. She started walking away, then turned back. For what it's worth, I am sorry. You seem like a genuinely good person. You don't deserve to be collateral damage in this. I watched her disappear down the hill, my mind reeling from everything she'd revealed. If even half of what she'd said was true, then Marcus wasn't just a man who'd made bad financial decisions. He was someone who'd been systematically stealing from his own employees to support his gambling addiction. My phone rang. Rachel, how did it go? I need you to verify some financial records, I said, my voice hollow. And Rachel? I think we might be fighting for the wrong side. The drive back to Rachel's office passed in a blur. By the time I arrived, she and Maya had already begun investigating Sophia's claims. The look on their faces told me everything I needed to know. It's all true, Rachel said quietly. Marcus has been embezzling company funds for over a year. The pension fund, the insurance fraud, all of it. Maya pulled up bank statements on her laptop. The pattern is clear once you know what to look for. He's been moving money between accounts, creating false invoices, even forging signatures. I sank into a chair, feeling the weight of betrayal settling over me like a heavy blanket. So Sophia was right. We're not the victims here. That doesn't make what she's doing right, Rachel insisted. She's still manipulating the situation for corporate gain. But maybe... I trailed off, thinking about Sophia's words. Maybe sometimes the ends justify the means. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Where are you? We need to discuss our strategy for tomorrow's court hearing. I stared at the message, thinking about the man I'd planned to marry. The man who'd stolen money from his employees' retirement funds to buy me an engagement ring. The man who'd been living a lie so elaborate that I'd never even suspected the truth. There's not going to be a court hearing, I said finally. Rachel looked at me sharply. What do you mean? I mean, I'm going to call Kellerman and accept his offer. Evelyn, you can't. Yes, I can. I stood up, feeling clearer than I had in days. Marcus doesn't deserve to have his life destroyed publicly, but he also doesn't deserve to keep getting away with stealing from people who trusted him. This way, his employees keep their jobs, his creditors get paid, and he faces consequences without going to prison. Maya nodded slowly. And you get $2 million to start over. I get justice, I corrected. Not the kind I thought I wanted, but the kind that actually helps people. I pulled out my phone and dialed Kellerman's number. He answered on the first ring. Ms. Richardson, I was hoping to hear from you. I accept your offer. But I have conditions. I'm listening. Marcus's employees get to keep their jobs and their benefits. His creditors get paid in full from the acquisition proceeds, and he gets treatment for his gambling addiction as part of any severance agreement. There was a pause. Those terms are acceptable. And Sophia's fake pregnancy disappears quietly. No more public drama, no more manipulation. It just goes away. Understood. I want the money transferred tonight, and I want a written guarantee that my family will never be threatened or harassed in the future. Done. I'll have the papers. Drawn up within the hour, I hung up and looked at Rachel and Maya. It's over. Are you sure about this? Rachel asked. No, I admitted. But sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel good. Sometimes it just feels necessary. As I drove home that evening, $2 million richer and one fiancé poorer, I thought about the complex web of lies and truths that had brought me to this point. Sophia had been right about one thing. I did deserve better than Marcus. But she'd been wrong about something else. Sometimes the people who claim to be saving you are just using different methods to destroy you. The trick is learning to save yourself. My phone rang one last time. Marcus. This time? I answered. It's over, I said before he could speak. I know everything. About the embezzlement, the pension fund, all of it. There was a long silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix what you've done. What happens now? Now you get help, real help, and you face the consequences of your choices. I pulled into my apartment parking lot. Goodbye, Marcus. Evelyn, wait, but I'd already hung up. Some conversations don't need endings. They just need to stop. As I walked up to my apartment, I realized that for the first time in months, I felt free. Free from lies, from false promises, from the weight of trying to make a fundamentally broken relationship work. Tomorrow, I would start figuring out what came next. Tonight, I was just grateful to finally know the truth. 6 months later, I stood in the reception area of Morrison Recovery Solutions, watching through the glass doors as Marcus led a group therapy session for gambling addicts. His face was thinner, more serious, but there was something in his eyes I'd never seen during our relationship. Genuine peace. The irony wasn't lost on me. The $2 million Kellerman had paid me to walk away had become the seed money for the recovery center Marcus now ran. After serving 6 months of house arrest and completing his own treatment program, he'd approached me with a business proposal that had stunned everyone, including myself. It's not about forgiveness, I'd told Rachel when she'd questioned my decision to partner with him. It's about making something good come from all the destruction. The Gambling Addiction Treatment Center was thriving. Marcus had channeled his natural charisma and business acumen into something that actually helped people instead of exploiting them. His first-hand experience with the consequences of addiction gave him credibility that no amount of training could provide. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Sarah Kim, the center's clinical director. The Thompson Foundation just approved our grant application. We can expand to serve 50 more clients next year, I smiled. Remembering how the Thompson account, the same one Marcus had tried so hard to manage through his consulting business, had become our largest supporter after learning about our mission. Sometimes the universe had a sense of humor about redemption. Evelyn? A familiar voice behind me made me turn around. Sophia Chen stood in the doorway, looking markedly different from the last time I'd seen her. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a volunteer t-shirt from Seattle Children's Hospital. Her hair was longer, pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore no makeup. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me, she said, glancing nervously toward the therapy session in progress. I wasn't sure either, I admitted. What are you doing here? I've been volunteering at the Children's Hospital, pediatric oncology ward. She followed my gaze to Marcus. I heard about what you two built here. It's impressive. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. The last time we'd spoken, she'd been manipulating me into accepting a corporate buyout. Now she looked like someone who'd spent months questioning everything about her life. I resigned from Meridian, she said quietly. 3 months ago. What happened? I realized I couldn't keep destroying families for profit, even when the targets deserved consequences. She pulled a folded newspaper clipping from her purse. Did you see this? The headline read, SEC fines Meridian Pharmaceuticals, $50 million for market manipulation. The article detailed how my complaint had triggered a broader investigation into the company's acquisition practices, leading to criminal charges against David Kellerman and 2 other executives. Your complaint started the dominoes falling, Sophia explained. Once investigators began looking into our methods, they found a pattern going back years. Kellerman's been indicted on 12 counts of securities fraud. I felt a complex mix of satisfaction and sadness. And you? Immunity in exchange for testimony. Turns out they wanted the executives, not the employees who were following orders. She looked directly at me. I testified about everything, Evelyn. Every company we targeted, every family we destroyed, every life we manipulated. Why? Because you were right that day in the park. Just because someone deserves consequences doesn't mean we have the right to play God. She gestured toward Marcus's therapy session. What you've built here, this is how you create real justice. Not through manipulation and corporate warfare, but by helping people heal. I studied her face, looking for signs of the calculating woman who'd announced her fake pregnancy at my engagement party. All I saw was genuine regret and something that looked like hard-won wisdom. "The pregnancy," I said. "Was any of it real?" "No, the whole thing was fabricated from beginning to end." She looked ashamed. "Medical records, ultrasound images, even the timeline confusion. It was all part of the psychological pressure campaign. And Marcus never cheated on you. Never touched me after college. Never even responded to my attempts to reconnect professionally." She paused. "For what it's worth, he really did love you. Even when he was lying about everything else, that part was genuine." I nodded, feeling a weight I'd been carrying for months finally lift. "I know." The therapy session ended, and Marcus emerged from the conference room, stopping short when he saw Sophia. His face went through the same series of emotions I'd experienced: surprise, wariness, and finally, resignation. "Sophia." His voice was neutral, professional. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I came to apologize," she said simply. "To both of you. What I did was unforgivable, but I wanted you to know that I've spent every day since trying to make amends." Marcus looked at me, and I could see him struggling with his own complex feelings about the situation. "The center is helping a lot of people," he said finally. "If that came from what happened between us, then maybe something good came from all the pain." "That's very generous of you to say." "It's not generosity," I interjected. "It's growth. We've all had to learn how to live with the consequences of our choices." Sophia reached into her purse and pulled out a check, handing it to me. "This is the commission I earned from the Meridian acquisition of Marcus's company. I want to donate it to the center." I looked at the amount and felt my eyebrows rise. "Sophia, this is $200,000. It's blood money," she said firmly. "I don't want it. Use it to help more people recover from the kind of addiction that destroyed Marcus's life. Maybe that way, some good can come from what I did." Marcus and I exchanged glances. The donation would allow them to expand their services significantly, reaching people who couldn't afford treatment otherwise. "We'll accept it," I said. "But only if you let us put your name on the new wing we're planning." She shook her head immediately. "I don't want recognition for trying to clean up my own mess." "Not recognition," Marcus said quietly. "Accountability. People need to see that redemption is possible, even after you've done terrible things. Your story might inspire someone else to change their path before it's too late." Sophia considered this for a long moment. "The Sophia Chen Recovery Wing?" "The Second Chances Wing," I suggested. "With your story as part of the dedication." 3 months later, the Recovery Center held its grand opening celebration for the new wing. The local news coverage focused on the unique partnership between former adversaries who had turned corporate manipulation into community healing. I stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of donors, city officials, and recovery advocates. In the front row sat my parents, finally free from the financial secrets that had haunted them after I'd helped them get proper treatment and debt counseling. Next to them, Rachel beamed with pride at her best friend's transformation from betrayed fiancé to social entrepreneur. Marcus sat with his new girlfriend, Dr. Sarah Kim, whose expertise in addiction medicine had proven invaluable to the center's success. Their relationship was built on honesty and shared purpose, everything his relationship with me had lacked. I was genuinely happy for them both. Sophia sat in the back, having insisted she didn't deserve a prominent seat despite her substantial contribution. She'd started dating someone too, a pediatric nurse from the children's hospital where she volunteered. Apparently, people who dedicated their lives to healing were attractive to someone trying to atone for past damage. When I accepted a $2 million buyout to walk away from my engagement, I began, I thought I was choosing money over justice. I thought I was taking the easy way out. I paused, looking directly at Sophia. I was wrong. The audience listened intently as I told our story, not the sanitized version we'd given to the press, but the messy, complicated truth about lies and manipulation and the unexpected ways people can find redemption. Sometimes justice doesn't look like punishment, I continued. Sometimes it looks like a gambling addict who becomes a counselor. Sometimes it looks like a corporate manipulator who spends her weekends reading to sick children. Sometimes it looks like enemies who become partners in healing. After the ceremony, I found myself alone on the center's back patio, watching the Seattle skyline as the sun set behind the Olympic Mountains. The past year had been the most challenging of my life, but also the most meaningful. My interior design business was thriving again, now that I'd learned to separate my personal worth from my professional success. The tax issues were resolved, my family relationships were healthier, and I'd discovered a passion for social entrepreneurship that I'd never known existed. Any regrets? Rachel's voice interrupted my thoughts. I considered the question seriously. About Marcus? About the engagement? About not taking a more traditional path to justice? Any of it? All of it? No, I said, surprising myself with how definitively the word came out. I regret the lies and the pain, but not the outcome. Look what we've built from all that destruction. Rachel joined me at the railing. You know, when this all started, I was ready to destroy Sophia Chen and David Kellerman. I wanted them to pay for what they did to you. They did pay. Kellerman's in federal prison. Meridian paid $50 million in fines and lost their license to operate in 3 states. And Sophia, I gestured toward the building behind us. Sophia gave up everything to try to make amends. And Marcus? I smiled, thinking about the man who'd spent the evening enthusiastically explaining addiction neuroscience to anyone who would listen. Marcus became who he was supposed to be all along. He just had to lose everything first to figure it out. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Saw the news coverage of your recovery center. Remarkable transformation from corporate manipulation to community service. Well played, Ms. Richardson. I showed the text to Rachel, who frowned. Another Meridian employee? Before I could speculate, another message arrived. My company could use someone with your strategic thinking and moral compass. Interested in discussing opportunities in corporate ethics consulting? I laughed, deleting both messages without responding. Some lessons don't need to be repeated. As we walked back toward the celebration continuing inside, I reflected on how completely my life had changed in just 18 months. The woman who'd stood in that hotel ballroom, devastated by her fiancé's apparent betrayal, felt like a stranger now. That woman had believed in fairy tale endings and simple definitions of right and wrong. She'd thought justice always looked like punishment, and love always looked like forever. This woman understood that healing was messier than revenge, that growth often came from destruction, and that sometimes the best thing you could do for someone you loved was walk away and let them face the consequences of their choices. Inside the recovery center, Marcus was explaining to a group of potential clients how his own addiction had nearly destroyed everything he cared about, and how treatment had given him a second chance at building something meaningful. Sophia was talking to a young woman about volunteer opportunities at the Children's Hospital, describing how helping others heal had become essential to her own recovery from what she now recognized as her own addiction, to power, control, and the rush of manipulating others. And I was watching it all, understanding for the first time that real justice wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about transformation, taking broken pieces and building something better than what existed before. The DNA test I'd once thought would end everything had become the beginning of everything instead. Not because it revealed biological truth, but because it forced all of us to confront emotional truths we'd been avoiding. Marcus wasn't the father of Sophia's non-existent child, but he was the father of a recovery center that had already helped dozens of people reclaim their lives from addiction. Sophia wasn't a pregnant victim seeking support, but she had become a dedicated advocate for children facing their own battles with illness and trauma, and I wasn't the betrayed fiancé whose perfect life had been destroyed by lies. I was a woman who'd learned that perfect lives were often built on foundations of denial, and that sometimes the most beautiful structures rose from the ashes of what came before. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, I stood once more at the center's front window, watching Marcus lock up the therapy rooms where tomorrow he'd help more people begin their own journeys toward healing. My phone rang. My sister Jamie, calling from New York where she was building her own successful consulting practice. "I saw the news coverage," she said without preamble. "Mom and Dad looked great. You looked great. Even Marcus looked like a completely different person. We're all completely different people than we were 18 months ago. Any chance you'll be ready to start dating again soon? I know this great guy in my building who—" "Jamie," I interrupted, laughing. "I'm good. Really good. Just me for now. For now?" I watched Marcus help an elderly client to his car. Sophia waved goodbye from the volunteer coordinator's office, and Rachel organized donation receipts with the same intensity she brought to legal briefs. "For now," I confirmed. "But I'm not ruling anything out. After all, I've learned that the most unexpected situations can lead to the most meaningful outcomes." After hanging up, I realized that this was perhaps the most important lesson of all. The engagement party that had seemed like the destruction of my future had actually been the construction of something better than I'd ever imagined possible. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to you. You just have to be willing to build something new from the wreckage of what you thought you wanted. And sometimes, the people who seem like your enemies are actually the catalyst for becoming who you were always meant to be. I locked up the recovery center and walked to my car, thinking about tomorrow's plans. There was a new client intake session to prepare for, a grant application to finish, and a speaking engagement at the University of Washington where I'd been invited to talk about social entrepreneurship and second chances. But tonight, I was just grateful. Grateful for the lies that had led to truth. Grateful for the manipulation that had taught me authenticity. Grateful for the destruction that had cleared the way for something beautiful to grow. After all, the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about transforming the damage they intended into something that heals the world. And in the end, that transformation doesn't just change you, it changes everyone whose life you touch along the way. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.